What you're hearing has never been fully explained by scientists, and some folks are convinced it's the sound of the end of days. But that's not all. Today we're investigating modern devices found buried in 200-million-year-old coal, a fire-blasting hole to hell that mysteriously opened up in Arkansas, a lost race of real-life hobbits, cursed objects that wiped out entire bloodlines, as well as an invincible animal that breaks the laws of physics, and more, as we explore some truly bizarre discoveries scientists can't explain. Occasionally, while digging for our lost past, we find out-of-place artifacts, things that don't quite make sense. One of these oddities was found in 1936 in the small Egyptian village of Saqqara. It all started in the tomb of Sabu. Now, Sabu was a man who liked a title. Known as the High Priest of Tar and the greatest of the directors of the craftsmen in the two houses, he lived in the 6th dynasty of ancient Egypt, so around 2300 BCE. While excavating his tomb, archaeologists found something that seemed completely out of place. A strange circular piece of finely crafted stone which they later named the Sabu disc. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen many ancient relics that look like hubcaps. Whatever it was, the Sabu disc had been crafted from a schist, a hard but brittle type of rock usually associated with simpler and larger sculptures. This is where things start to get weird. The Sabu disc is extremely precise and unique, being the only one ever found. And while the Egyptians were undeniably capable of astonishing creative feats, archaeologists are yet to uncover any indication of what tools and methods they used to craft something of this complexity and precision. Being a quarter of an inch thick around the edges and 24 inches in diameter, the slightest wrong move would have split the schist, forcing its maker to start again. While not unfathomable, the time it must have taken to craft is insane. The purpose of the object still baffles researchers to this day. While some dismiss it as a simple vase, incense burner, or tray for religious offerings, there are other wilder theories. One amateur historian 3D printed the disc and found it particularly effective in water. When placed in water and spun at high speeds, it creates a powerful vortex, suggesting it might have been part of an ancient water pump. Could the Egyptians have had access to machinery, perhaps water-powered or even electrical? Renowned British Egyptologist Cyril Aldred believes that whatever the disc's use was, it is a replica of a much older metallic object, an object never discovered. Swiss author Eric von Däniken shares this idea but goes further to claim the original metal device belonged to a very advanced civilization. In fact, he suggests it was possibly even alien in origin, and that the sculpture models a spaceship's hyperdrive. Certainly fun to think about. I personally think it's Tutankhamun's steering wheel. But jokes aside, if it was in fact a replica of a wheel used as part of a vehicle, there's another oddity to consider. Wheels may be everywhere today, but it's widely believed that they were only introduced into ancient Egypt in the form of chariots in 1640 BCE, around 700 years after this disc was made. The plot thickens again, but it all depends on what this thing was really used for. And as it stands, it looks like your guess is as good as the Egyptologists who dug this thing up. If you sit in silence and just listen, what can you hear? Birds, traffic, peaceful silence, or maybe just maybe you hear a hum. A low rumbling or a low vibrating buzz inside your head, or maybe even a loud distant screech like the metal of some gigantic structure struggling under its own weight. If you've ever heard any of these yourself, you're probably not crazy, but you might be part of the tiny 4% of humans who claim to have heard a background hum of this kind. I know it sounds crazy. Well, actually, it probably sounds like, but the case for its existence is undeniable and largely unexplained. Here's a few samples people have captured of these head-scratching hums. Among those who have heard quote-unquote the hum, while most are simply a little unnerved, some people report feeling dizzy, others have headaches, nosebleeds, and some people are struck with insomnia. The earliest reports of this hum date back to the 1960s with reports from Bristol, England, where dozens of people all over the city complained to their local government about an irritating, persistent hum like that of an idling diesel engine, yet without any apparent source. In the following decades, the hum was heard all around the world. New Mexico, Missouri, Northern Ireland, New Zealand, Canada, Germany. The world was slowly being invaded by millions of invisible giant trombones blasting high and low. Sound experts of all varieties were tasked with tracking down these harmonic poltergeists, but despite their greatest efforts, no universally accepted theory has ever been established. Among the ideas put forward, most common theories suggest that it may be industrial equipment like big trains passing planes, large fans, or huge generators. It's possible that these sounds are occurring in the distance or obscured from view by buildings, giving a lack of apparent source. Or that these distant machines are causing the walls of houses to vibrate and generate a low-frequency rumble. Others put forward different theories, like science teacher Glenn McPherson, who created website thehum.info, giving people all over the world a central space to share their humming experiences. After reviewing the data and noting that a lot of people claim to hear the hum while in the same room as others who can't hear it at all, McPherson's latest theory suggests that the sound may originate within the ear itself, possibly due to random contractions in an inner ear organ known as the cochlea. Another explanation involves different temperature air currents colliding in the sky, causing powerful low-frequency vibrations. We all know how loud thunder can be, so this one's my personal favorite. But many more possible explanations exist, ranging from earthquakes to air vibrations shaking people's skulls to jet planes' sonic booms to government experiments. Or the most fantastical of all, angelic trumpets from heaven heralding the end of days, as foretold in the Bible's book of Revelations. Still, the fact remains that there's no real conclusion about what the global hum is. Whether it's a combination of the theories I mentioned or just God moving his furniture around, I'll leave that up to you to decide. Imagine waking up one morning, cup of joe in hand, you walk outside to take in the morning air, and bam! Your eyebrows are scorched clean off as a gigantic pillar of fire burst up from beneath the ground. Sounds ridiculous, but back in 2018 in Midway, Arkansas, this actually happened. On a September morning that year, Midway's fire chief responded to a call about a column of fire shooting up out of a 2-foot wide hole. The fire hole blasted flames out for 45 minutes before it stopped, leaving a charred pit in the earth. Once the hell circle had chilled out, locals measured it at 3.5 feet deep with a 45-degree turn near the bottom. But what could have caused it? A local gas company investigated and found nothing, not even gas lines running through the area. There were reports of lightning strikes the night before, but the fire didn't start until the morning. The only clue to this devilish case is that the area smelt of burnt plastic.
That smell. A kind of smelly smell.
Maybe it was a very modern devil, one that couldn't afford sulfur. Jokes aside, no satisfying explanation has ever been put forward for this oddity. Some theorize it might have been an act of arson, possibly a local trying to burn out an animal den, but no animal remains were found at the scene, nor any hints of fire-starting equipment in the area. Some posited the idea that some kind of tiny meteor had struck there, vaporizing as it hit the ground. However, anything large enough not to vaporize in the atmosphere would have likely left a bigger impact crater, not a narrow tunnel. While there's little evidence to support this meteor idea, there have been cases of other utterly bizarre stuff seemingly falling from the sky. Just like this mysterious object. This strange rock had locals of the Canadian city of Kitchener convinced they'd uncovered something from the deep cosmos when it was found in a backyard. The two sisters who found it were digging around for worms, prepping for an upcoming fishing trip when they noticed something shiny, bluish, and transparent. As they pulled the strange artifact from the ground, the size quickly became apparent. It was as big as their heads and looked like some kind of roughly cut extraterrestrial gemstone. Needless to say, it quickly caught the media's attention. People initially thought it was part of a meteor that had been seen plummeting through the skies in the area only a month before, but that was quickly dismissed by Professor Phil McCausland from the Earth Sciences Department at Western University. He noted first that a meteor's surface would be darker in color and there would have been some kind of impact crater. Gary Winkler, a member of KW Gem and Mineral Club, took a closer look at the weird find next, and being completely unable to determine what the thing was made of, sent it on to the University of Waterloo. After a few weeks' research, they finally put forward a convincing theory as to what the thing was. Their suggestion? It was glass. A decorative garden glass rock, to be specific, of a variety commonly sold in mineral collector stores.
They're minerals.
While the question of why it was buried still remains, I just wish there was as easy of an explanation for that mysterious burning hole in Midway, Arkansas. Blast me your theories for that one in the comments below. In Indonesia, there's a myth about the Ibu Gogo, a group of short human-like creatures that lived in caves and would come out to steal children. For most of modern history, these nightmarish creatures were considered nothing but folklore. That was until 2003. That year, at the heart of the Indonesian island of Flores, a discovery stranger than fiction was made. During an archaeological dig in Liang Biwa, or Cool Cave, ancient remains of tiny humans were found. These diminutive remains weren't unlucky children, though. They were fully grown adults of a lost human species named Homo floresiensis. Their Latin name means humans from Flores, but unsurprisingly, they were quickly nicknamed the Hobbits. At first, the remains were thought to be a one-off, most likely a human with a growth deficiency, but then more were found and the mounting evidence couldn't be ignored. The hobbits, our distant cousins, were way smaller than modern humans. Standing at 3.5 feet tall, they weighed roughly 70 pounds and had brains about a third the size of ours today. But that didn't make them stupid. Their resting grounds were found littered with evidence of tool-making and possibly fire usage. The hobbit bones range from 60,000 to 100,000 years old, and they are thought to have lived on the island until they went extinct around 50,000 years ago, either just before or at the same time as Homo sapiens pulled up in the area. No prizes for guessing who scientists think may have been responsible for the hobbit's disappearance. These pocket-sized hominids are an enduring mystery for the science community. Aside from a tiny scattering of other small-statured human specimens across other isolated Southeast Asian islands, adult humans of this size have rarely, if ever, been discovered anywhere in the world. What's more, the rare remains of Homo floresiensis that have been found on the island are extremely delicate and have been poorly cared for, resulting in extensive damage and making studying them even harder. Scientists are to this day unable to fully agree where this bizarre species belongs in the human family tree. Some suggest they may have descended from Homo erectus, one of the first human species to leave Africa. Others argue there may be a whole lineage of other miniature humans yet to be discovered or lost to the sands of time who those diminutive island dwellers descended from. All I know is these hobbits probably loved magical rings and breakfast.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
In the 1850s, as the Industrial Revolution was rapidly approaching its peak, laborers in Scotland made a discovery that threatened to obliterate all understanding of technological history. You see, during road construction works near Glasgow, as pickaxes chipped away at a coal seam, something appeared embedded in the coal that made absolutely no sense at all. A metal drill bit. You know, the type used in power tools and driven by machinery? Well, considering the coal deposits in Scotland date back around 250 million years, you might be able to see why this was a little unexpected, to say the least. Did this mean eons ago, when this coal was formed, dinosaurs were using power tools? Well, I wasn't there to say for sure, but there's probably a slightly more reasonable explanation. The drill bit had appeared 10 feet down, leading some to suggest it was the result of a previous coal probing effort in which it had snapped off and been left there. However, the men who found it and brought it into the public eye strongly refuted this. They insisted there was no evidence of drilling marks or other disturbances in the surrounding coal. While similar cases of modern tools being found embedded in ancient seeming materials are usually explained by soluble rock gradually hardening around a dropped object, but coal in the ground doesn't possess these properties. If the workers' testimonies are indeed accurate and there was no evidence this drill bit was a misplaced tool from a modern worker, could it have come from an ancient society with advanced technological capabilities? If so, the coal seems dated back millions of years before humans even came on the scene. So just what might these ancient sentient beings have looked like? It's more than a little unsettling to think about. Some mysteries are so bizarre and so obscure that scientists don't even get a chance to try to explain them. One such case that's been driving me crazy with curiosity is this mysterious slab one amateur user's friend dug up in their backyard. Information on the slab is minimal, but it was uncovered in the US around 2013. The slab has zodiac signs etched into it, suggesting that it could have been used as an annual sundial or a solar clock, but with very additional info provided, it's mostly been a slightly creepy mystery, though not exactly a hard one to fake, if someone were so inclined. Whatever the explanation, hoisting something like that out of your yard definitely feels like the kind of thing that'd trigger an ancient curse. Which is exactly how I feel about this image I saw while researching. This box from the depths contains a deadly mystery of its own, but not an ancient mummy or artifact. Nope, this box contains, brace yourself, a freaking leopard. Big cats sometimes fall into wells in India, and so they use boxes and ropes as makeshift elevators to free the cats. But here's the mystery. If wells like that are 60 feet deep with only a foot or two of water at the bottom, how do the cats survive unscathed? The physical resilience of big cats has perplexed scientists for decades, especially one particularly enigmatic subspecies, snow leopards. Just take a look at how many hits this furry warrior takes while in pursuit of its prey. Those are some serious tumbles. Thankfully, leopards' muscular legs are exceptionally long relative to their bodies, and paired with the tendon and ligament structure of their paws and ankles effectively allows their legs to act like springs. They also possess an aerial riding reflex which enables them to move while falling, twisting their body and extra long tail to control landings. Mostly. Using soft snow to absorb some of the impact as well as positioning their prey as extra cushioning, it's surprisingly common for snow leopards to carry out these shockingly rapid descents. That being said, scientists are still perplexed by just how much physical trauma these cats could seemingly endure. Some have theorized there may be structural secrets in the molecular structure of their bones and cartilage, while others speculate that they may have unusually high pain tolerances. But due to the rareness of these animals, research remains minimal and a high degree of mystery endures. For now. In 1992, farmers in Longview County, China drained several ponds and discovered something truly astonishing, not to mention creepy, hidden below. Where the water had been for countless years, there lay an utterly mind-blowing system of sandstone caves. But the craziest thing was the caves were man-made, sporting 5 large caverns and 19 smaller rooms. The unbelievable discovery left archaeologists and historians baffled. The human-carved caves were clearly ancient, but the level of intricacy and careful design of the structures raised enormous questions. Who built all this? When? And why on earth was something this magnificent left submerged with water for so long? Despite their immense size, with some caves possessing the same floor space as aircraft hangars, there are no historical records about their construction or purpose. All we know is they're likely to be around 2,000 years old, according to analysis of the age of clay pots found buried in silt within the caves. The story gets stranger though. Since their excavation, locals have been adding Buddhist sculptures to the caves, but the true original carvings are much more fascinating. Each cave sports near-identical chisel marks and inclined walls to support the ceiling, suggesting the same method was used to carve out each cave. Yet despite this, most of the caverns are completely disconnected, with each having their own individual entrance, the only way in or out. Huge supporting pillars line the main rooms alongside carved grooves that funnel rainfall into what appears to be a water storage system. Equally impressive is that the caverns are aligned in a southwesterly direction, ensuring their openings let in as much sunlight as possible, even late into evening during summer months. Several short steel chisels were found in the cave, leading experts to suggest that the most likely method used to create the caves was carving the rock from top to bottom, layer by layer. It's estimated that over 350,000 tons of rock was excavated to achieve this, which may have required hundreds if not thousands of workers to achieve, depending on the time frame in which they were constructed. But not so much as a single human tooth remains there today to confirm one way or the other. Regardless, the level of precision and skill to carry out all of that was otherwise unheard of in this area 2,000 years ago, suggesting these strange caverns may have been occupied by a very advanced lost society whom archaeologists are yet to uncover. As you can probably tell, tons of questions remain echoing the walls of the Longview Caves. Were these intended to be holy sites, livable homes, grain storage, mines, or even tombs for the dead? Each option shares a degree of possibility, but the fact is, no human remains have ever been found here, nor has anyone found the masses of rock that were excavated if they were used for constructions elsewhere. There's also the huge question of whether these sites were lost after accidental flooding or whether they were flooded intentionally. It's going to require some big revelations before experts can draw any concrete conclusions here. So for now, all we can do is appreciate how cool they are and how easily they might never have been rediscovered. Imagine you're walking through a cemetery one night letting your inner goth roam free when all of a sudden a glimmer of gold catches your eye. Closer inspection reveals this strange object. That's exactly what happened to a cemetery maintenance worker in Jerusalem. But they didn't think they'd uncovered some kind of ancient relic. Oh no, they immediately called the police thinking they just found a bomb. The bomb squad showed up and, living up to their namesake, rigged up a controlled explosion to blast the thing before it could blast anyone else. But to no effect. After the smoke had cleared, they noticed the object was unharmed. It was a miracle.
God be praised.
But that raised the question, just what the heck was it? The cemetery undoubtedly stood on historic ground with one of the oldest and most religiously significant cities in the world, so theories began to drift towards the divine. You can imagine the police's panic at realizing they just tried to blow up a potentially sacred religious artifact. The police contacted the director of theft prevention at Israel's Antiquities Authority, Amir Ganor, and told him all about the oddity. Ganor didn't recognize the artifact as any known missing piece, but after x-raying the gold scepter and analyzing the material, he began to seriously wonder, could he be holding in his palm a millennia-old relic used religiously in biblical Judea, somehow lost for generations? His research provided no conclusive answers, so Ganor did what any self-respecting expert does when they don't know something. He posted on Facebook. Within no time, 300 people replied, one of them with the holy answer. Only it was weirder and more unexpected than anyone could have guessed. It turned out the thing was something called a Weber Isis beamer. What now? Well, it's a piece of gold-plated brass that supposedly uses sacred geometry, traditional Chinese medicine, and crystals to repel electromagnetic fields and geopathic radiation. Whatever that means. You can buy these online, actually, but they ain't cheap. Only $1,250 for the big one. If that doesn't sound ludicrous enough, the same company also offers a light pyramid aura cleansing plate with special anti-bad vibe screws for $260. Or better yet, a piece of metal you can connect to your water pipes filled with crystal and glass to energize your water for $1,731. But is there anything to it? Well, if you ask a certified scientist, they'll almost certainly tell you no. For those who feel mainstream science doesn't cover everything, though, here's a summary of their ideas. Geopathic radiation is energy some folks believe is given off by the Earth's natural structure, which the ISIS beamer's creators say it can neutralize, preventing that radiation causing you harm. They also say it can reduce the effects of electromagnetic radiation from electrical sources, phones, and space. Following so far?
Yeah, baby!
They also attribute its powers to sacred geometry, specifically the idea of shaping the object in alignment with certain mathematical ratios and shapes which are found throughout nature. They say they drew inspiration from the Egyptian Djed pillar, a symbol used by the ancient Egyptians to symbolize the backbone of the god Osiris. All in, the company claimed this works to strengthen the body's own energy field, open the mind to new insights, and above all, shield against radiation from mobile phones. All very bold claims, but suitably vague enough to discourage scientific scrutiny. The ancient town of Lemba in Cyprus is small, hot, and home to a deadly curse. Local legends tell of a British archaeological dig taking place there in 1878 which unearthed a pure limestone doll. A doll which would bring with it untold ruin and horror. This strange, simple stone-carved doll was dated to 3500 BCE, making it as old as the written word itself. The figurine, thought to be an abstract fertility symbol, was named the Woman of Lemba and was the first of over 100 similar dolls discovered on the island over the next century. Like most stuff the British found in the 19th century, it was quickly taken from its home and sold into private hands. The private hands of a fellow named Lord Elfont, to be precise. Over the next 6 years, though, Lord Elfont and 7 members of his immediate family had died of sudden, unexpected causes. The statue was then acquired by Ivor Minucci, whose fate was similar and sudden. Within 4 years, Minucci and his entire immediate family perished through various accidents and sudden ailments. The statue then took the lives of its next 2 owners, Lord Thompson Knoll and Sir Alan Beaverbrook, as well as much of their families. Luckily, Beaverbrook's sons survived and very quickly donated the cursed object to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh. Before it returned to its eternal slumber, it took one last victim, the curator who handled the statue, who died within a year. Reports claim that the statue still sits in Edinburgh, safe behind glass, forever remaining untouched by human hands. None of the sources sharing this shocking tale could explain away the pattern of death. It didn't make sense. Could it be that the idol wasn't really limestone and was instead a lethally poisonous material like radioactive uranium, mercury-laced cinnabar, or possibly lead? Curious, I decided to do some digging. I called the Royal Scottish Museum only to be told it wasn't there. It had never been there. None of their departments could tell me anything about it. The object had left the world as suddenly as it had entered. What's even stranger is that no records of Lord Elfont, Ivor Minucci, Lord Thompson Knoll, or Sir Alan Beaverbrook ever existed. And the dubious sources that shared and repeated the backstory online never provided any substantial evidence for their claims, which I also noticed among some of their other supernatural-focused articles. And the only source you might consider a legitimate news organization, Cyprus Mail, sharing the story, well, their article recounts the same lack of evidence I found. They revealed the statue is actually found in the Cyprus Museum today, although they do mention genuine museum records which strangely describe the figurine as disturbing. Still, while it's likely the statue is indeed as old as the stories claim, most evidence points to the statue actually only being dug up in the 1970s by Professor Edgar Peltenberg, who lived happily until 2016. No 4-year curse for him, it seems. Where the legend surrounding the figure emerged from is a mystery almost as baffling as the legend itself. Maybe there's nothing to it, or maybe the woman from Limba erases her victims from reality altogether. I'll let you be the judge. On the banks of Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire, back in 1872, a local businessman, Seneca Ladd, hired construction workers to put up a fence. As they dug a hole, they uncovered something extremely peculiar and unexpected: an egg with a face.
No, I'm not.
The egg was made of stone, hard as granite, roughly 4 inches long, 2.5 inches thick, and weighed just over 1 pound. It was engraved with unusual astronomical symbols, human faces, and other curious markings, leading Ladd to call it the Mystery Stone of Lake Winnipesaukee. In 1927, after Ladd had died, his daughter donated the stone to the New Hampshire Historical Society. It was here where more intensive study could be carried out that it quickly became apparent that this thing, well, it shouldn't have been where they'd found it. Scientists found the markings and structure didn't match any traditional objects the local Native American tribes had produced in recorded history. The American Naturalist and early 20th century publications suggested that the stone commemorates a treaty between 2 tribes. Some building on this theory even suggested the object is Celtic or Inuit in origin, meaning the object had somehow potentially traveled thousands of miles. But there was no substantial evidence to support this trading theory, nor any matching samples in any of the suggested origin locations. Others theorized the object might be a grave offering, and if the workers had dug a little deeper, they would have found bones. The strangest part of this mind-bending discovery is that there are holes in both ends of the stone bored with different sized bits. Richard Boisvert, a state archaeologist, commented that while finding stones with boreholes does happen, these holes are unusually perfect and don't show any signs of aging, suggesting another major twist in the tale. From these insights, he strongly suggested that the holes by all metrics appeared to have been drilled using modern power tools, which meant either A, someone had tampered with the object, or B, an ancient Native American society possessed highly advanced tools beyond commonly accepted historical consensus. The bizarre discovery of the Lake Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone in New Hampshire has perplexed scientists for more than a century. To this day, no one's really sure what the heck it is, how it got there, or who or what made it. I, for one, hope it's it's a self-portrait by an extinct race of egg people of the great fallen egg empire that once ruled these lands. Hail to the Egg King! So folks, what's the most bizarre thing you've ever encountered that you think scientists would have a hard time explaining? While you're thinking about it, check out my other video here about bizarre historical coincidences that occurred around the world. Let's keep this mystery train rolling. Catch you next time.